Welcome everyone to another episode of the STEM Broker podcast. I'm your host, April Boyd-Noronha, known as the STEM Broker. And yes, I'm just a girl that's also a geek who loves to talk about girls in STEM. For more information about the STEM Broker podcast, upcoming Girls in STEM events, and professional development training, visit our website, thestembroker.com. If you missed a previous episode, links to all of our shows are on the podcast page on our website. Now, you can also check us out on social media. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at the handle @thestembroker and like us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thestembroker. So if you're on Twitter right now and you have comments or questions about the show, tweet them using hashtag #TheSTEMBroker. Now, for some of my newer listeners, I know you're wondering, what or who is the STEM Broker? Well, we are a consultancy that is focused on increasing the level of training, engagement, and dialogue in support of all things about girls in STEM. Now, if you've been tuning in every Monday night at 9 p.m., then you already know that I have a personal investment in the success of the Girls in STEM initiative as a parent of 3 children, 2 of whom are my daughters, also aspiring engineers. So, briefly, let me share with you 2 ways to help keep STEM alive in the community and virtually as well. 1, partner with us as an advertiser, or 2, sponsor a podcast for as little as $25 a month. To get started, visit our website, thestembroker.com, and click on the donate link, or send me an email at april@thestembroker.com. And remember, we offer training for adults as well. Are you a teacher who wants to keep STEM alive or at least introduce STEM to your students? We got a class on how to do that. Maybe you're a recent or soon-to-be graduate that's about to test the STEM waters and you need some career guidance. We can coach you on how to get your foot in the door. Or maybe you're an HR professional or an IT recruiter. You're responsible for not only recruiting and hiring a dynamic IT team, but also maintaining and retaining a diverse IT staff. Yep, we offer customized training for that too. So for more information, visit our website at www.thestembroker.com or email me at april@thestembroker.com to get started. Now remember, we can bring the training to you. Or maybe you know of a new startup or a cool site that would just be the perfect place to host a Girls in STEM boot camp or professional development training. Share this podcast with them and encourage them to contact me at april@thestembroker.com for details. Now, last week I shared my tips and terms that every girl in STEM needs to know. If you missed last week's broadcast, never fear, no worries. Head on over to our website, thestembroker.com, and click on the podcast link to tune in. But this week's topic is my top 10 takeaways from a recent Midwest Tech Summit that I attended. And I was recently invited to a tech summit in the Kansas City, Missouri area to share my perspective on the tech industry as both a STEM training provider and a female technologist with a security IT degree. And others in attendance represented those from the recruiting and the higher education sectors. I mean, it was a good mix of all the components needed to prepare aspiring and current techies to be successful in their careers in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. Many thoughts were shared. Lots of points were discussed. I mean, the participants represented, they were about, I'd say about a 60-40 male to female ratio. And that coupled with about a 70-30 Caucasian to person of color ratio. So it was a very good mix that was represented at the Tech Summit. Now, as a staunch STEM advocate myself, I feel compelled to share with my fellow STEM peers a glimpse of the commentary that was being expressed that's currently being expressed in the Midwest region. So if you were a fly on the wall, then today's podcast would be a snippet of some of the dynamic dialogue that you would have heard had you been at the Tech Summit. And so my 10 takeaways would start pretty much at number 10, that collectively, the STEM community is primarily comprised of the educators, training providers, employers, the colleges and schools, students, and the parents. We cannot forget the parents. But we all, as the STEM community, face the challenge of being ahead of the curve in preparing current graduates for hard-to-fill tech jobs. And as students graduate, there still is a talent gap phase between graduation and the actually securing of a tech job. And because technology is changing at such a rapid pace, curriculums, whether it's undergrad, graduate, or certificate-based, the curriculums must be on par, cutting edge, and applicable almost from day one. Now, number 9, my number 9 takeaway from attending a recent Midwest Tech Summit was collectively the STEM community faces the challenge of being ahead of the curve in preparing future graduates for tech jobs on the horizon. It's kind of that catch-22, the future graduates. How do we get them ready for jobs that we don't even know may even exist? They're on the horizon. But once again, the challenge is finding that right mix of real-time experience, relative skills, and the current knowledge needed at workplaces today and beyond. Even more importantly is that it has to be on both a local and a global level. The proverbial question continues to be, how do you employ the unemployed who are overeducated, underskilled, yet they already possess the workplace soft skills to get the job done because they're seasoned workers. So not only are we trying to prepare the current graduates, but the future graduates for a platform that we have yet to even discover. My number 8 takeaway from attending a recent Midwest Tech Summit was that we need collaborative partnerships. And this is not a new mindset or a new topic, but it's needed even more so to provide the best career readiness training, and that's both in the classroom and on the job. Case in point, the main reason why I was eager to join in the discussion at the Tech Summit was that many of the participants were representatives from colleges, from both 4-year and community, but more importantly, they were representatives from the tech departments like engineering and auto and advanced manufacturing. Also at the table were constituents from workforce development entities in the metropolitan area. Also training providers, and they were of all sizes, from small, regional, and even from a standpoint of being a boutique consultancy such as myself was represented as far as a training provider for STEM. And then a fourth component that was there at the table, just bringing their perspective, were recruiters in the STEM fields. Now, there was a great mix at which to come to the table to engage in dynamic dialogue on such a pressing issue of how do we train and prep for our future students and leaders in the tech industry. Now, number 7 takeaway from a recent Midwest Tech Summit that I attended was to focus on teaching the fundamentals while designing a new tech curriculum. Once again, it's that catch-22 where, how do you design a curriculum to best prepare students? So though training providers are pressed to create customized training, truthfully, because of the fast-changing tech world, technology changes on an average of 18 months. Specifics can't be taught in a particular industry. Unless it uniquely incorporates on-the-job, real-time, on-site experience. So traditionally, most comprehensive types of learning is best exemplified by either through an internship or an apprenticeship. Now, these two learning formats are good in itself, but they need to be utilized more and quite frankly, better structured to further enhance a learner's knowledge and skills while all the while supplementing relevant coursework. A number 6 takeaway from a Midwest Tech Summit that I attended was some of the emerging tech industries, and some I knew about and some I didn't, and some I'm amazed to see just where it can go from here. One being the mobile app development industry. Everyone has a phone, and I mean, practically you can do everything from a phone. So, I mean, just the depth of where this industry can go is just mind-boggling in itself. Other industries that are emerging within the tech field is, of course, coding. That's the basis. .NET, 3D modeling, sensory or microchip, the sensory or the microchip chip industry, the cyber and info security industry. And then, I mean, the cloud computing industry, I think that's probably the top industry that all the participants spent the most time talking about. Where can it go from here? Now, I can do a podcast on each of these topics alone due to the depth of where these industries have yet to go. I won't do that today, but I mean, these are some of the emerging tech industries that training providers and recruiters are faced with the challenge of how do we get our students and our young people interested and involved in pursuing a career in these industries. And number 5 takeaway that was very engaging was the stakeholder accountability factor. And the accountability factor lies within, I say, both extremes, from the learner and all the way to the socially responsible companies. And what I mean by that is we now see an emergence of corporations like Intel and Cerner, etc., and venture capitalists that are funding campaigns from simple startups to school programs and community training centers that are teaching girls how to code, such as programs like Coder Dojo and hackathons. Not to forget, federal funding, for example, the Earn It and Learn It grant, is a viable source to adequately fund tech training. Now, many stakeholders are stepping up to the plate by putting their money where their mouth is, and I applaud these efforts. But first and foremost, the drive and accountability has to be and begin with the individual. Now, I love the motto, where there's a will, there's a way. And now, like never before, does this ring oh so true for today's and future technologists, where innovation and thinking outside the box, coupled with a fierce drive to succeed, is said to be the critical keys to success in a STEM career. Number 4 takeaway from attending a recent Midwest Tech Summit was how do we hire the right one? How do we wrap our minds around finding and choosing the right one? And at the Tech Summit, this interesting fact was thrown out that where it used to take 10 days to fill a job with the right candidate, now companies are willing to wait up to 28 or 30 days to fill a position, all in the hopes of hiring the right one. Now, one of the participants at the Tech Summit in Kansas alluded to the fact that a serious revamp of the current recruiting processes and the mindset is a critical starting point to be addressed. Now, there needs to be more dialogue about an earnest, I call it retraining of recruiters, to not only seek the specialist, which is the candidate that specializes in a particular field,